whether we're leaders or whether we're making big decisions or we're just trying to figure out what we're doing, real wisdom comes when we start admitting that on our weaknesses that I cannot do this by myself. I need help. And I don't just mean family and humans. I need somebody who knows way more than anybody I know. I need God to help me figure out what I'm doing. Seek God's wisdom before anything else, and let humility be the foundation and the driving force behind our decisions and our actions. That's what needs to happen. I'm going to stand today. I'm getting better. I was telling Betty, I actually put my own sock on this morning for the first time in 4 weeks. So my hip is getting much better. I had to figure out how to get my sock on because I'm going to be gone overnight to the regional conference down in Indy, and I either have to go without socks or find some way to leave a sock on overnight in the shower. So I don't know. We'll figure that. I got to be able to get the sock on. You know, we're starting a new series, and I thought we'd go back and we'd look at the Old Testament. We'd look at the kings in the Old Testament from Solomon on, and we're going to look at their lives. We're going to look at what was going on around them, and we're just going to kind of analyze it and see that even we have a tendency to stumble and fall. But have you ever wondered why some leaders seem at the beginning to be going great? They have it all together. And then suddenly, they lose their way. It happens in our society today, in our government today. Or why some people start out as strong, but they don't finish well. That's what we're going to dig into with this new series, which I'm calling When Kings Rise and Fall. We're going to walk through the stories of the kings of Israel and Judah. There's a lot of them. We'll probably be in this. Obviously, we'll take a break for Christmas. We'll be into this well into next year. But we're going to kind of understand that these kings were real people. They had real struggles. They were not immune to the issues of their day, and they weren't immune to the issues we have as humans. Some of them were very wise and very faithful. Others got tripped up by their pride, got tripped up by bad decisions they made. They got tripped up by bad advice. And many times, as we do ourselves, they got tripped up by just plain stubbornness. Their lives are full of big wins. And just like us, also full of big losses. And these are kings. Their losses affected the whole society. So as we get to know these kings, I want us to see that the issues that they face aren't a whole lot different than the issues that we face. Very similar in what we have to deal with today. We question, who are we to follow? How are we to lead? What does it mean to stay true to God? I think I look back, I've been here 10 years now, I look at my sermons, and how many times have I talked about what do we need to do as believers? And guess what? Even though that's told us over and over again, we still struggle with it. We're going to learn from their successes. We're going to learn from their mistakes. And hopefully, we'll see that through all of it, no matter what happens, God's love is still patient. God still loves them. God still has a plan. His plan is still being worked out. It doesn't. What we do does not change God's plans. No matter how many times we mess things up. So if you're a leader, if you're a follower, or if you're just trying to figure out what you're going to do next, there's going to be something in these stories for all of us. So let's dive in here and see what happens to these kings as they rise and as they fall, and what it means to us today. Now, of all the kings in Israel's history, Solomon, the son of David, was the wisest. He was not only known for his amazing insight, his extraordinary wisdom, but he's also known as ushering in what was considered at that time to be the golden age, and you've heard that term a lot today if you've watched any of the political things. You know, our current president has said many times this is the golden age. That remains to be seen. But it was known as the golden age of Israel. Now, when Solomon became king, one of the things he did was he asked God for wisdom. The reason why he wanted wisdom so that he could rule the people well. And God granted it to him. He gave him his request. And then along with that, he gave him unmatched wealth and unmatched honor. You know, people from all over came to see him. All over. They wanted to see the wisdom of Solomon. Today, we're only going to get through half of the story of Solomon. There's so much there. We're going to get through the good half. We'll see the bad half later. Because even Solomon faltered. Israel was experiencing years and years of peace and prosperity under his rule. Unity. Understand that there were only 3 kings. And even the first king, you can argue, wasn't. They weren't unified. There's only 3 kings that Israel was actually unified as one nation. That was Saul to begin with, and that wasn't the greatest. David unified the kingdoms, and so was Solomon. After Solomon, it splits. The kingdom is never unified again. You could argue today they're not unified because we don't know if all 12 tribes have come back. We believe they probably have because the lineage has been lost in history. But it was a time of great unity. Israel had reached the pinnacle of its influence. Now, Solomon, he's credited with writing the wisdom literature, which is many as Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs. And yet, despite all of these God-given gifts, the story of Solomon serves us as a tale of caution. Think about this. Even the wisest man can fall. What makes us think that we can't? That's why I talked about last week. We needed to keep our minds on things above, not on the things of the earth. Solomon started with very humble beginnings. If we go to the book of 1 Kings, verse 3 of chapter 3. This is what it says. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. And we'll see, as we go through these kings, we'll see that is the benchmark that the writers always put to this. Did he or did he not walk in the ways of David? For all the kings down through, it's always, did he walk in the ways of his father David? Solomon did. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was one of the great high places. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. Now that sounds great, doesn't it? Solomon, why is this man ever lives? He follows in the statutes of his father David. But then we see this little caveat in there. Solomon begins to compromise. He offers offerings in the high places. So let's pause a moment and think about that. Let's talk about what these high places are. Back in Solomon's day, these high places were spots on hills. What you got to think is in Old Testament and Jewish theology, God was considered, we talk about God being in heaven. Well, we always think of heaven being up, right? So if you wanted to get close to God, where did you go? To the mountains, because you were going up towards heaven, and that's where God is. That's the whole idea. So they would build these high places on mountaintops to worship. People would go there to worship. Now, before the temple was built, it wasn't unusual for people to offer sacrifices to Yahweh at these local shrines. Sometimes even the heroes of the faith did this. But the problem is, those same high places were also places where the Canaanites worshiped their gods. Gods like Baal and Molech, who both required child sacrifice. I told the kids about this the other night. Molech was a god. He was sitting here like this. His hands were out. And they would have a fire burning underneath him, and they would lay the babies in his arms to be burned to death, to sacrifice to Molech. These things were going on at these high places. And here's Solomon going to these high places and worshiping Yahweh. Beth and I were up in Wisconsin at a regional conference, and we went to the college there, Beloit College, to do a prayer walk. Beloit College used to be part of the Congregational Church. It is no longer part of the Congregational Church. It's very pagan. In fact, there's a cute little chapel in the middle of the campus, and a lot of debauchery occurs there. They do plays there that are completely anti-religious. Imagine we worship God here. We worship Christ here. Imagine if we let, a Satanist group come in and use the church. That's why it breaks my heart when I see churches that allow transgender story hour. And I want to be honest with you, we need to love people who are dealing with transgenderism. We need to love them deeply. But there are things we should not allow. And having them be in the church, presenting as if it is perfectly fine, is a problem. But this is what was happening. Solomon's going to these high places, and he's worshiping God. But these high places are also places where pagan worship is happening. Back in Deuteronomy, here's what God says about these high places. He says, "You shall surely destroy all the places where the nations whom you shall dispossess, served their gods." If they served their foreign gods, these gods, in the high place, it must be destroyed. On the high mountains, on the hills, and under every green tree. You shall tear down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and burn their Asherim with fire. You shall chop down the carved images of their gods and destroy their name out of that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, but you shall seek the place that the Lord your God will choose out of all your tribes to put his name and make his habitation there. There you shall go. See, that's the question in the church today. Are there things that we can make sacred? Things we can use in the church that we can make sacred. Yeah, there are some things, but there are some things we cannot. Anything that preaches a false doctrine, a false Christ, we cannot. And churches today are walking that line. So once Solomon builds the temple, God made it clear, this is where you are to worship. But as we know, old habits die hard. People keep going to these high places. They don't tear them down. And then Solomon, instead of putting a stop to it, actually gets involved and does it himself. And we know, we know that he also set up many of them for his foreign wives' gods. Solomon was a man who had many wives, more wives than any person should have. No offense to anybody, but I always tell people, listen, I struggle to be the best I can be with one wife. I can't imagine having hundreds. Nothing against the ladies at all. It's our failing, not yours. Okay? He would set up these places for his foreign wives who had foreign gods. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. I just accidentally did it. I did this. I shouldn't have. No, this was open rebellion. And it opened the door for idol worship on a national scale. Because, my gosh, the king is doing it. Why don't we do it? The president's doing it. Why don't we do it? And this is where it gets serious, because later kings saw what Solomon did and they followed his lead. People talk about the slippery slope. There is a slippery slope. Sometimes it's a small slope. We say something we shouldn't, and it becomes a longer slope. Many times we do something we shouldn't, and it affects our family for generations. I'm not talking about sins of the fathers, because God does not hold us accountable for the sins of our fathers. I'm talking about the actual emotional, relational, societal impact that our sins have on those around us. Some try to clean things up, but most just let the high places stay and let the people do what they wanted. So over time, little compromises lead to bigger compromises, so it affects the whole nation, and they become further and further from God until eventually it all comes apart. And God has to send an army to come in and put all of Israel into exile. You got to wonder, are we doomed to exile one day? I don't know. I think Christ will come back before then, but I can't think that we don't do anything worse or anything much worse than what they did. And God put them in exile. We're living under his grace right now. Doesn't mean we take advantage of it. Today, some churches combine Christian teachings with ideas that are definitely not Christian or from other faiths, even paganism. There's some that they actually mix Islam and Christianity. They call it Chrislam. Or they integrate New Age spirituality. There's a church that actually teaches that you have angel cards that they flip out, and those angel cards all mean something. Sounds like tarot cards to me. But they have angel cards, and that's what they teach. They teach them to foretell the future with their angel cards. It's mixing paganism with Christianity. This creates a whole new belief system that's completely different than the faith and the truth of the Bible. They're worshiping a different Jesus.